Welcome to Mission Making with Rich. I am Rich, a mission maker at First Air Assault. Between mission making and other duties in the group, I don't have a lot of time to make individual mission making tutorials. So it's suggested that I let anyone who's interested tag along and join me as I create a mission. Even if First Air Assault members aren't interested in mission making, this video is a great opportunity to see what goes into each mission and the Arma magic to make things happen in-game. For at least this mission, which is Operation Census, which we've all played. This mission did take about 15 hours to create, but the good news is only the tutorial stuff will be real time and will speed up all the rinse and repeat parts of building a mission. But even speeding bits up, the video is 8 hours in total, and that, my friend, is one long video. So it's broken up into 4 parts, and this video is part 1. While we go back and forth on a lot of mission-making topics, this video focuses on the editor overview, keys, controls, and placing things, mission planning, markers, manipulating objects, and dressing the set. Enjoy! So if you want to make a mission, you're going to start off here, obviously, and bear in mind, if you're not with First Air Assault, there's going to be a bunch of mods that you're going to see within the editor. As a matter of fact, the editor itself is enhanced through a mod, so there may be some things that you may not have on your own screen if you're not in First Air Assault. You can see along the bottom all the mods that we have and that we use, and this is actually the mod set that the group uses. There is no additional mods in this version of Arma as we're playing. So you're going to go to the editor. We're currently on lithium, so let's go ahead and bring that up. So I've already created the base. There's a bunch of stuff with our missions. It's progressive, so stuff happens to the map as we go through and play the deployment. Basically, you're going to see when I start the mission making process for this particular video, I've already done the base, and there's a couple of things that are already placed on the map. If you take that into account, we're probably 2.5–3 hours into making this mission if I had to start all that from scratch. Before we go into actual mission making, let's go through and look at the editor itself. If you look across the top, you will see it's basically a toolbar, the type of toolbar that you would see in any Windows program. I'm not going to go through every little thing that's in the editor, what it does, etc., etc. We will go through and explain them as we actually use them. The only thing I do want to show you that you really need to know is you want to go to Settings, Preferences, and this is going to bring up your Preferences screen. Every window within the editor looks like this. These little triangles will maximize or minimize that actual section. You can see saving. I can minimize it. And you'll see why we'll want to do this a little bit later, because some of these windows basically has all the attributes of what you're working on, a particular object. It may be a pretty big window. There may be a lot of information, so you'll want to collapse these to more easily get to the section that you want. In this case, I wanted to show you the saving. And this is going to be really, really big. By default, you should see on your editor that this is checked. And by default, Arma 3 binarizes your new scenario files. Basically, all that means is it basically encodes it so it's harder for people to open up the raw data of the mission file, which is great if you don't want anyone to peek under the hood for your missions. But for what we do at First Air Assault, you'll probably want to keep them unbinarized, because occasionally maybe you'll include a mod while you're making a mission and you need to remove that mod. Maybe we've updated the mod pack and you'll need to tweak the mod that's actually in a mission that you made before we updated that mod pack. So I would uncheck that. Also, autosave, you can see I've got mine to never. The reason I have that is because if you're at a point in the mission and maybe you're trying something new and you've deleted some objects and you're putting some stuff down, if it comes in autosaves, that's where your save is. And you may not actually want it to save at that, because now you have to go back and recreate what you had before you made all those little changes as you were testing something. So I personally never have mine on autosave, and I never have the binarized new scenario files checked. Now you can have this checked, and you will actually see when you go to save the mission, it gives you an option to uncheck it. But obviously you have to remember to do that every time, and it just becomes a pain, quite frankly. So that's what you want to do. Otherwise, if you're going to open something you've already created, you're going to go ahead and click the open folder. And what happens, you see it'll bring up every mission that you've ever made. And you can see this is where all Rich's missions go to die. If you want to save, it's just the save icon, and so on and so forth. So the left-hand box, which can be minimized by clicking that little arrow there, or you can actually do it by hitting E, I think. Yes. So E or clicking that little arrow there will minimize it. Why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you want a little bit more screen to work with. So everything in this bar is everything that you place down on the map. In other words, this is all the assets that you are using in your mission. You will see that these are all grayed out because I just literally opened the editor and I've placed nothing down. As you start to put items down, if I go through and actually grab one of our guys and throw him on the ground, you will see it put him under the blue 4, and it'll fill it under the category. And we're actually going to talk about how to keep this organized a little bit later. On the other side are all the assets you have access to. So you can see that it's broken into categories across the top. You can access each one of these categories by either clicking on the icon, or you can click F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. As I said, I'm not going to go through every little detail, but very, very quickly. These are single units. You can see that that includes cars. It's a playable item in this row. In other words, you can get in it, you can drive it, or you can actually play as it. And this is further divided into categories of sides. So we have blue 4, op 4, your independent, your civilians. The next one are groups, and if you go into First Air Assault, you will see we have Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. So in other words, if you want to put an entire group down, you would go to F2, and again, it's divided by factions. F3 would be triggers. We're going to be looking at this a little bit later. F4 are waypoints. Basically, if you put down AI and you want them to move anywhere, you're going to be using these. F5 are systems. These are modules. Basically, these are going to be your best friend. They save a lot of scripting. These are just really, really awesome. Back in the old days, you used to have to script a lot of stuff and find scripts and insert scripts and try to start scripts. F6 would be your markers. You'll notice it changed the view to a map. You can only put markers down in a map view. To go back to your 3D view, just hit M, and you can manually go to the map if you want to. Now you will notice if you actually go to F2, you get a couple of other options. This here are compositions. We're not going to particularly go into those, but if you want to Google those and do some search on it, that's they're really awesome things, and they can save you a lot of time if you have a nice library. And then finally, props. Props are basically I usually access mine through F1. Props are basically anything you can't play. Buildings, objects, things like that. So let's talk about how to actually manage all this and how to get around. So to look around, you press W to move your view forward. Press S to make it go back. A can make it go left. D will make it go right. Q will make you go up in the air, and Z will bring you down. Now, if you want a free look, you hold down your right mouse button and just move your mouse. So I'm holding down my right mouse button and just moving it around. So that's free look. And then if you combine that with your keys, I'm pressing W. Now I'm pressing Q. I do have to look because I naturally just do these. You can move around the map. Or another easy way is you press M. This is your view right here. So that's showing you where your camera's looking. I scroll my mouse wheel. I can move out. I can move in. And if I want to go a particular place on the map, say for instance I want to go over here, this will be fun for First Air Assault people because unless you've gone into the editor you would not have seen this. I click the middle mouse button and you can see it tells me I want to put my camera right where my cursor is. I hit M. right mouse button to move it up. And this is actually the FOB. It's hard to recognize because it's being dressed up. It's being changed so much. If you want to move your way along the map while you're in the map, in other words, you're in the map view, you can hold down your right mouse button and basically drag the map. Press M to get back to the map, and I'll just show you a couple of ways to manipulate objects you put down. Click on whatever you want, and you can see there is a little icon showing I've got something, and then left click and the guy goes down. So left click to grab it, drag it around, left click to put it where you want. And like most window programs, hold down the left mouse button to lasso stuff. So you can see I basically held down the left mouse button and pulled the mouse to one side, and it basically creates a box. Anything within that box will be highlighted. And now if I hit the delete key, bang, they're gone. So let's put our guy back down, left mouse button, put him where we want him. Everything is set to its own true north. That may not be a true north. Sometimes you'll put down a vehicle and it'll actually face to the left or the right, because that's how the model maker made its default position when you put it on the map. So if you want to rotate any object, you just basically put your mouse over it, hold down the shift button, the left shift button, and then basically hold down the left mouse button and spin it around. Right? If you want to move it up in the air, hold down the left Alt button, hold down the left mouse button, and pull it up into the air. And then pull it back down. Now you will notice he snapped. Did you see how he snapped when he got on the ground? Let me show you what that looks like when you get to a hill, because this is really, really important. I'm going to remind you of this a little bit later when we're actually making the mission. So if I put this guy over here and I run him up the mountain, you will see he's actually following the contour of the earth. And that's because you have your toggle vertical mode and you have your toggle surface snapping on. So basically you are telling the game that no matter where you put it, you want him to stay snapped to the ground. Depending on how you make your missions, this will be really, really great. And it is very, very useful, particularly if you're putting down like fences and stuff like that. However, there are times when you want to have more control over where the height is. And I will give you an example. If I go over to my props and let's go to furniture. So I press the triangle to open it up. I'm going to go to camping, press the triangle again to open it up. And I'm going to put down a table. I'm going to put the table, scroll my mouse wheel in, right there. If I grab this guy, left mouse button, drag him up, and I pull him up, you'll see he actually snaps to the table. And that is very, very cool, right? There are some instances where you don't want him to snap, or an object to snap. And if you want to have full control, click this to toggle off vertical mode and the snapping. And you will see that I can leave him in the air and he doesn't snap to anything. He will basically, depending on where I do the left mouse and left Alt key, wherever I leave him, that's where he'll stay. And if we start the game, that's where we'll spawn. Obviously, if I'm spawning in the air, gravity will take over, my character will hit the ground, and I'll have some type of injury. Again, let's left mouse button, lasso. Take my finger off the left mouse button, hit delete, and it's all gone. You want to make a mission? So you can see I've gone ahead and preset these objective markers because I want to make sure that these match the grid coordinates I've already put in the op board. Down here, you will see this is our base that we've been working off of for the first couple, and we'll look at that a little bit later. So if I go up to here, you will see this is our objective. So in my mind, this is how the mission is going to play out. Basically, we take off. There's going to be a holding point somewhere around here for Bravo to hold, Bravo and Charlie to hold. Alpha will be inserted here, establish an overwatch, and if you look by going into the map, Alpha has a really nice overwatch of the area of operations. This mission will be taking place at Dark 100, so they'll be using thermals as well as NVGs, but that'll be even better for them. Then what will happen, and we're going to establish this as we start making the mission, we're going to establish where we're going to have the insertion points for the ground troops to go in and actually do these raids, which is objective ray, X-ray, age X-ray, age whiskey, sex whiskey, sex X-ray, and then the third one will be a joint Bravo and Charlie objective race. But normally what would happen is the mission maker would decide where these insertion points were. But because I'm the mission maker as well, I can actually go ahead and put down the markers right now. So now I know what I'm going to. These are the areas I have to build up. Basically, you're seeing that making emissions. A couple of things. You have the environmental part. In other words, I call it dressing the set, putting down the stuff to make it look lived in. 90% of the times you're going to have to tweak your map to make it look like what you want the mission to look like. Then there's the mission part, which is putting down all the assets, putting down all the bad guys, and then there's the final part. There's the maintenance part, putting down all the mods that we use, making sure people have Zeus access, Simplex support access, and stuff like that. And that is at the very end, when we make sure that even the ACE settings are set correctly so everyone can have a great playing experience. I did leave off one marker because I wanted to show you how it's done real quick. Again, this is not going to go through every little nook and cranny of making a mission, because you can go out and watch 10, 12, 13, 14 videos, tutorials, how to make missions, and they won't cover everything. Making missions in Arma is one of those things you have to accept that you are never going to know it all. It is going to be very frustrating, and you are constantly going to have to go online and Google things. The beauty about Arma is many of the things that we do in Arma 3, you can use the same solutions that were used for Arma 2 and the original Arma Operation Flashpoint. It's the same base engine, and a lot of the solutions, snippets of codes and stuff like that will still work today. So we're going to add one more marker down. This is going to be where the ANA are. Fortunately for me and us, because you have to watch this video, this right here is mostly in place. I'm not going to have to tweak this hardly at all. I'm probably just going to go ahead and put a holding cage in there to actually deposit the bad guys in. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a marker on here to let people know that it's here. Everything has to be obvious. If you're making people think in game about stuff they shouldn't have to think about, you're really not doing your job as a mission maker. So we're going to start off with our markers. Markers are divided into two sections. They're divided into basically placeable markers, and then they're divided into shapes. In this case, we're going to start off with a shape. So you're going to click, in this case, rectangle, because that's what we want. It always starts off as this shaded box. Now you will see that my shaded box has handles around it. See, you've got the little, if you put the arrow over there, I can make this a different size. If you don't see this, it's located right here, area widget. You'll have to basically toggle that on and off if you don't see it. If you don't see it, you're not going to be able to resize it manually. You'll have to go into the menu in the area I'm about to show you. As with anything in the editor, to access it, the attributes, you're going to double click it. This is the attributes tab. You can either double click it or you right click and you'll see attributes right here. And it'll take you to the same box. So for markers, these are the options that you have. This is your position on the map, X and Y axis. Of course, you can just drag it around, it's much easier. This is the size. Again, we're going to adjust it in game because that's easier to see. And then this is the rotation. Again, we're going to adjust this in game. Some of the stuff, whether it be objects, players, whatever, you're going to manually type something in here or copy and paste something in here, or you'll visually do it in game. What we do need to change in here is I want to make this a border. In other words, right there, you can see it's a border. In other words, what's going to happen is just you'll see an open square. And because this is the ANA, I want to make it green. Don't worry about in shapes text. It doesn't really show up on the map for whatever reason. And you'll see that's changed the solid gray into a border. Now, as I mentioned before, what I'm going to do is I am going to adjust this to fit over this thing here. So basically, put the marker over whatever you want to do. You see I rotated it. I have the little arrow saying I could rotate it. And then you want to move it to where I can size it. And obviously how much time you spend on this is up to you. Use your middle mouse wheel to scroll in and out. And there you go. The only downside that I haven't found is it would be nice to be able to make these darker. Now a little green box isn't going to be too obvious, so let's go ahead and label it. So let's click the icons, and I'm going to go ahead and just use a square. Again, double click it to go into it. I'm going to make this green. Now when I put the text that's going to appear to the icon, I personally always put a space because it just looks too cluttered otherwise, and we're going to call this ANA FOB. True fact, I was trying to think of a code name for this, and the theme of this mission is Census. I couldn't think of one. I just couldn't think of one. So I just said, you know, I'm just going to call it the ANA FOB. You know, there's only so much creativity in this old brain of mine. Let's open up our asset bar. And as you can see, let me downsize this. You can basically downsize each section. It basically has, and it's easier to see here if I downsize it all. It breaks everything down into different categories. You can see that blue 4, it's saying I've got some stuff in there. There's no Auth 4 down. There's none of these down right now, so it's not highlighted. So there's nothing there. Systems, I told you that was your different modules and things. I have some high terrain objects. We'll talk about that module a little bit later. May even talk about it when we're making, we're dressing the set, so to speak. Markers, this is where my markers are kept, right here, this folder. Now, this is not going to be here when you go in. I created this folder, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's called layering. You can see the commands are down here. I only started using this, so I am not an expert on this by any means, but layering allows you to basically put a category of objects under one layer. So if you need to take it off the map to declutter your map while you're trying to make your mission, that makes it a lot easier. And I'll give you an example. If we come down here to where the base is, right here, I have all my base stuff under this layer. And we'll show you how to make that layer and how to add to it as we go through. And if you open it up, you can see every item that I have on the base is in this layer, in this folder. And really how you manage your layers, if you even use this, is entirely up to you. Here's the advantage. If I come down here and I toggle layer visibility, you can see that it takes everything off. Now, that stuff is still on the map. It's just you can't see it while you're making the mission. So if I had to do something complicated, like have a patrol going around here, and I didn't want to accidentally move one of my existing objects, or I just didn't want to see it while I was putting stuff down, I could toggle it off and then just toggle it back on when I'm ready to go. So that's a handy tip that prior mission makers used a lot. I've just started using, so I'm sure a lot of people out there will become much better at using layers than I currently am. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm actually going to start creating the environment. You will find that creating the environment really is up to you. If you want to go into detail, I would probably say about 70% of my mission making time is creating the environment itself. That could be because I have the systems down for spawning bad guys, triggers and stuff like that down pat, and I can move through that fairly quickly. But when you're dressing the set, a lot of it's a judgment call, and you're doing it as you go along, and it can be a little bit time consuming, but that really is going to be up to you. But before I do anything, I need to place down a friendly unit, and I'll show you why. So let's go into the map. So I'm basically going to click the middle mouse button, and that'll put down the camera wherever my cursor was, and if I hit M, you can see I'm here. So if I go in, and let's just say that while I'm making, dressing the set, I decide I want to put down a civilian. If I just go ahead and put down a civilian, you'll see that it comes up with this red circle around the actual unit icon itself. And what that's telling me, if I go into the attributes, is it's defaulting this as a player. In other words, when you log into the mission screen, you'll see this is a choosable option. We don't want that, obviously. And no matter what unit you put down, if I go over here and choose a bad guy, it'll do that as well. The very first unit, playable unit, asset that you can play in that you put down, the game will automatically turn into a player. Now you could say, Rich, why don't you just untick that box and keep going on? The reason is every time you put down a playable unit, you'll have to go in and do that. And that will waste a lot of time when in reality you really don't have much time to make a mission anyway, because you'll see as you start getting into mission making, it can be a very time consuming process. So I've basically positioned myself back over our base, middle mouse button, set the camera, open it up. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead for now, just to stop that default action from happening. I'm going to go in and find my 0 alpha. We're using the woodland camo. If you're not in First Air Assault, you won't have any of these. And woodland actually is named Scorpion, because these are obviously First Air Assault mods. So I'm going to go up to the top. There you can see we've got 0 alpha. Actually, oddly enough, is because it's done in alphabetical order. Let's see what squad leader. There you go. He's buried. You can see it basically is following the numbers system to present it. So I basically click him down. Now this has, and you can see a little bit clearer here against the concrete, the red circles around it. He's a playable unit. Again, right click. If you want to get into anything, any attributes about anything, you can right click. If I go into the attributes, you'll see he's player. And I really don't care about that at this point, because no matter what I put down anywhere else, I can decide whether it's accessible by players within the browser or not. So let's go ahead and look at these first objectives. So again, position your cursor over where you want it to be, click your middle mouse button, hit M. So you can see by looking at the map, I wanted people to come into here. We're going to have to raid this at night. This looked like a really cool place where I could throw a bunch of bad guys, make it a little difficult, a lot of challenges to go through and raid it. And then across the road, I've got a similarly complex but slightly different compound. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and dress these. In other words, add stuff in them to make them look good. And let's start off with the most obvious stuff, which is we can put down some vehicles. So what we're going to do is we're going to do civilian vehicles. So click on purple for your civilians. You will see that Arma divides everything up to civilians. This is anything that is included in the base game, including DLCs. You can see you got your Tanoan, you got your story. I happen to have Livonia, Asian. They separate into some races here. Because we are in the Middle East and technically, fictitiously in Afghanistan, we can go ahead and choose civilian Pakistan. And you will see that I've got a bunch of people here. Now I can, if I want to, redress all these people. And maybe we'll do a couple of these things to make them look different. But understand some mods will have a random script attached to them. And if I put this guy down right here, I'm pretty sure he's going to stay the same. You can see he's come with some goggles. And then if I take the same guy again, this is olive desert jacket. You can see they've randomized it to where now he's got a face covering right here. So some mods will randomize it for you. Other mods you'll have to go in and redress them, and we'll look at that. So what we do want is we want the cars. Cars are the same. Cars come with different color schemes. This never happened in the older Arma games. Arma 3, this is something that they've added, and it can make mission making a lot easier. So let's put a truck here. Trucks are always good. They can also be used as for bad reasons, transporting stuff out, taking stuff here to there. Now you will see I actually have my box unchecked here. It says place vehicles with crew. If you want to have civilians in here, make sure that box is checked. Then choose your vehicle. And when it's spawned, you'll see it spawned with a civilian already in it. Unless you're going to actually have this vehicle move during the mission, you don't want that. You can manually delete that guy out of there every time, but again, you don't have a lot of time when you're making missions. So unclick that. And then let's find my guy again. Here we go. Let's put this right here. So the model is preset on which direction it's going to spawn in at. But if you go into the actual attributes, you can see that according to this model, this is at 0 degrees for this model. This may not necessarily be due north in the game. This is just saying that this is 0 for how the model is configured. So you can either go in here and double click it and manually set your the direction you want it to face, or the easier way is to hold down your shift button, put your mouse cursor over the actual icon, and you can see you can spin it around. So we want to make this look like you've got cell leaders in this particular compound, right? So everything we're going to put down, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting stuff down. Parts of this video are going to be fast forwarded if it's just me doing what I have shown you how to do. And then if I have to do anything else, I'll slow down the video so you can hear me narrate what I'm doing and walking you through the process. A lot of this video is going to be me stopping, looking, and thinking. I'll cut out the thinking parts. I want everyone to think I'm very clever and it just comes straight to me. But also, you know, obviously you don't need to watch all of that. But you'll see that when you go in, really mission making is, you know, part inspiration, part physical work, and the other part just having those aha moments when you're actually doing stuff in a map. I've actually been making a mission, put down an entire section, and then went, hang on, took a different approach, took everything out and restarted again. Fortunately, it doesn't happen too often. So let's make this into a bad guys, could they be a bad guy kind of place. Now, one thing you might want to do, if these vehicles don't need to be driven, you can make these into simple objects or make them indestructible. Why would you want to make a car indestructible? Everything about Arma is getting the best performance for all the players joining into your mission. This is why we have to be careful about the number of bad guys we have on the map at any given time and the objects. If I were to go and fill this thing with minute details and objects, and if I put down thousands of objects, every player who joined the mission, their computer would have to draw all those objects, and that would obviously impact their performance. At First Air Assault, we try to make missions optimized to where it can be played on a range of machines enjoyably. So you want to keep that in mind when you're making your missions. One of the tricks to helping that performance is to make objects that may not necessarily be used. In other words, they're just there to make things look pretty, and reduce the effort the game engine has to spend on them. And what I mean about this is, let's double click on this. Each attribute menu only includes stuff that pertains to that particular object. So if you click on a vehicle will have different attributes to just an object like a desk, right? Which will have different attributes to a playable unit. And we're not going to go through in detail each one of these categories. We'll explain them as we use them. In this case, this is the default how it opens. This is what you're going to see if you just double click on an attribute box for a vehicle. You can see we have special states down here. To open it, you just hit the arrow and it shows you all your options. I'm not going to go through all these options, but you can see enable simulation. In other words, what will happen is while this box is ticked, the game is constantly monitoring this object for its health. If something blows up next to it, it'll bounce in the air, the whole 9 yards. So you can imagine if we take this off, and you can even see the hidden box tells you that it's going to ignore any input or collisions. You just unclick that, Now the game isn't monitoring that object's health, so that's less effort the game has to spend on this particular object. You start to multiply this over all the stuff that you're laying down, it's really going to help your performance. Never unclick show model, because what's going to happen if you unclick that box, you'll get in game and won't be there because you've told the game, hey, I don't want to see this in game. So always keep that ticked. Some objects will have the simple object option. You can see here, it basically turns it into part of the map. It's a rock, basically. If you have that option, take it. And then the final one, you always want to untick enable damage. Now, you'll see that this has, when it goes gray, that means it's a simple object. And when it has a red dot next to it, that means you've gone through and altered the default attributes in some way or another. Now, I will tell you, the downside to this is you can have someone hide behind this car right here, right here, and have people shoot at them from here, and bullets and grenades, nothing will destroy this car. It'll sit there like it's the most solid rock you've ever come across in your life. So you are sacrificing realism and immersion for performance. So understand that if you you may occasionally want to have cars in an urban environment that are fully enabled with the simulation and the damage to allow that, was this thing going to blow up if it gets too shot up as I duck behind it kind of air of uncertainty, right? So we're going to go ahead and do the same on this. Now you may notice when I open this attributes box, this had my special states already open. While you're in the mission and you're making the mission, Arma is very good at remembering the last thing you did. I'll give you an example. If I close these and I just leave it to where it's this and I hit OK, next time I go in, you will see everything's closed, and it makes it easier to access the area that I'm concerned about. The advantage to doing this is if you get into a rhythm, and this is how I do it, you'll see I'll go and lay down all my vehicles, then I'll go and lay down bits and bobs and props around things. If you're doing things in waves or categories, that saves you a lot of clicking, finding your way in that attributes tab. So let's go ahead, and what we'll do is we'll go down and start placing some objects. Well, you may notice that I put down a bunch of cars and did not change their attributes. You can see here, and all these over here, there's still actual live objects that are being monitored and can be blown up. The reason I left those the way I did is because I wanted to show you this trick. You can actually do to these what I did to these cars individually in one fell swoop and just group them like this. It's just like lassoing anything in any Windows type program. Right click on one of them, go down to your attributes, and when the box comes up, you can now go through and take the options and the choices that you want, and you'll see they'll do it all at the same time. Now, this only works when you don't have other stuff down. Like, say, for instance, I had something around here that I wanted to the game to monitor for health or damage or whatever. I'd have to be really careful to make sure that I didn't lasso that as well. Because otherwise I would accidentally change the attribute of that as well. So it's a great power, but like any great power, it needs to be used with care. The other thing we need to start doing is the reason that I'm intent on putting a lot of vehicles down to dress this set is part of this mission is going to be having Alpha and Zulu look out for bad guys escaping in technicals or trucks that can be used to carry goods. So those are going to be vehicles that obviously can be driven, and you'll see what we'll do is we'll spawn in a bad guy to run in there and then jump in the car and disappear. But there needs to be other cars there so they don't stand out, right? If I have 20 cars, the odds of you keeping focus on that, which one of those cars are going to go out, are going to be a lot less than if I only have one car. Well, you're constantly going to be looking at that one car to see if he's going to drive off, right? So it's really, I'm trying to hide the vehicles that I want them to keep an eye on throughout the mission. So that is one of the reasons that I'm going to be placing a lot of cars down, and consequently we also need to look for places where they're close enough to the action to where the bad guys could have possibly been in that area that we were sent in to do the raids, and be seen by Alpha and Zulu as leaving the scene of the crime, but not close enough to where they're looking at them when the bad guys spawn in. Mission making is all about having people look right when the bad guys are spawning to the left, if that makes any sense. So you're going to see me put down some bad guy cars, and I'm not necessarily going to make them simple objects or disable the damage, because I'm going to want them drivable when I start placing down the bad guys. Another trick to the trade, if you have a bunch of these cars to put down, what you can do is you can actually highlight them, can press Control C, and we can use this basic mix of cars and place it in different parts around the map. So by pressing Control V, and as you can see, they're put down with all their attributes set how you want. Now you just basically move one or two so they don't look too obvious that they're together. So I've grabbed these three. They're pretty distinct looking vehicles, but what I can do now is I can basically go through my terrain, and I can find various places I can put these puppies down, and hopefully, because they're not right next to each other, it won't feel like one of those really old cartoons where the characters walk in front of the same background over and over again, because the artist didn't have time to come up with different backgrounds to actually have the characters walk in front of. So the secret to this is just make the cars look like in slightly different positions. And let's be honest, when you watch these documentaries about the modern war zones anyway, every car seems to be white. So this isn't such a bad thing to copy and paste your cars, because it probably wouldn't be far off from the truth. And then you also have the advantage that occasional cars like this van here are popping up in different colors anyway, which actually helps mix things up for you. Of course, if we did put the same car everywhere, maybe we can give the First Air Assault members a feeling of being in the Matrix, right? Where they see the same cat twice very, very quickly and start making them question about their actual existence. Alright, so make sure you save often. You don't want your game crashing on you, which, as we know with Arma, it will happen. So let's go ahead. That's a really good base of cars. You can see when you come in and look at the map, that's probably the cleanest way of looking at it. And you can see that there's a fair amount of cars there. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you can't go crazy with too many objects, because if you do, it's just going to hinder everyone's performance. Now, if you look over here to the left in your asset thing, we have all this stuff in the empty. So let's go ahead and start to create this extra layer that we're going to have to keep a little bit of an orderly mission. So basically, you want to highlight the bottom object and then hold down Shift and highlight the top, and it'll highlight all of them. Go down here to New Layer, and you will see, if we go up here, it came up with layer 18, and it's got all those cars in there. So now, let's name it. Double click on layer 18, and we're going to call this objective objects. There we go. So now, if you look, we've got a really clean work area here. And that's really why people do the layers. That in the first instance I showed you of being able to hide stuff. So now what we want to do is we want to basically put down the bad guy cars that are going to be driving out. So if you've played the mission, you may have seen this. If you were hunkered down in a compound and didn't quite notice it, what's going to happen is there are going to be triggers placed throughout this AO. And when we trip those triggers, it's going to spawn some bad guys. They're going to run to the vehicle, and then they're going to drive off like they're trying to escape the raids. And it's up to Alpha to basically eliminate them along with Zulu. If the vehicles are along this side of the road, they're going to have to use laser guided munitions, with the idea being that it'll be precise and just take out the vehicle if they're driving through this residential neighborhood. If they're going down this side of the road, Alpha are clear to use whatever support they like, and we actually have some artillery pieces back at the green zone area where they can call in artillery to take out those bad guys, or you can order a QCAS run to run down this road. So we have a relatively unpopulated ASR on the western side, and we have a populated ASR on the eastern side. The eastern side is going to be easier to put stuff down because you don't have to hide the bad guys too much. They can come out of a courtyard. The odds of them seeing the bad guys just as they're spawned in before they run out of a courtyard are pretty remote. You're going to have a little bit of a challenge on the west side because we have to hope that they're not looking directly at that area. Like this area, if I were to go into this, you can see, there's a house there. We could probably get out and pull them out. So we're actually going to have to put a couple of cars on this side too, so the technicals don't stand out too much. Now obviously if Zulu and Alpha look really closely, anything with a gun on it they're going to be focused on. So when we're starting to put down these vehicles with that are weaponized, we're going to have to make sure we put down ones that aren't going to be used as well. So we're going to go on to F1 or single objects. We're going to press the bad guys. There's a couple of ones that we can use. We can use the Euro Militia if we want to. If you go to cars, you see we've got these basic technicals, and they're going to be so far up in the sky they're not going to see the icon that you see that's on the actual vehicle. And I'll give you an example. If we go back into the map where we were, we can put this one down here, and we want to make it to where it's actually ready to go. It's close to the road, doesn't want to be on the road in case we put another car behind it and they have to drive past. AI drivers are just terrible people, and you're going to see this when we start pathing out them escaping. So we're going to go and at this point we're going to go through and start placing some technicals. What we'll do is we'll put down the technicals that we want to drive at first, and then we'll start laying down the technicals that aren't going to be driven off, and what we'll do is we will make those indestructible. Now don't forget, we are also going to be targeting anything that can be taking goods out. So I'm going to stick down a couple of these bigger trucks as well. for this side, we want to make sure that we do it near the objective, but not too near the objective. So right here is where the guy's going to come down. As I mentioned, this is going to be one area. This is going to be another area. We already have a bunch of cars here, so like this would be a good place to put down something. And I know these are actually Pakistani Army, but again, they're not going to see that from the air, right? And you know, we'll make these a couple of, because they can only shoot at the ones that are trying to escape, so they won't know exactly which one these are, right? So this is this side. Let's put a couple over here. Yeah, I want this area here to be a little bit fuller, make it difficult to get in there. So I'm going to start building some stuff around here, and we can decide where we're going to put the vehicles, and then we'll actually start putting in the bad guys. Now, this is where everyone's going to do everything a little bit differently. You're going to find all your props, and what a prop is it's every object that you cannot get in, drive, or spawn in, basically. So all the buildings, all the rocks, all the foliage. If you're not in First Air Assault, we've got some basic editing mods which consolidate stuff which is not found in the conventional editor. I'd also caution you to make sure you understand if you're using specialized mod objects. And what I mean by that is you'll look, and we've got a lot of JBAD objects here, and that comes with the JBAD mod, which we had to load up because of lithium. Remember that if you start getting comfortable using any of these objects, they're not going to be there if we ever get down the road and take out JBAD. So that's just something you want to understand when you're starting to find your way through. There's a couple of ways to find what you're looking for. In this case, we want to look for some Middle Eastern buildings. JBAD Afghan houses, you just click on the arrow down. If you do the down arrow, you see city. These are little preview screens, and these will tell you exactly what they look like before you put them down, which is always very, very handy. Or the other way is, say for instance we were looking for arch. You remember putting down an arch, but you couldn't remember where it was, because not only do we have Middle Eastern buildings in the JBAD, if you go down here we have Middle Eastern structures, and then just the way that things end up with mod makers renaming stuff, there's a bunch of other Middle Eastern type objects in various categories. The easiest way to find something, if you're pretty darn sure the object is named, in this case arch, just go up the top here and type in ARCH, and this will do a search for you in anything with arch in it, because this has arch in it in search. If you see there, this has arch in it in larch tree. It'll pull it up, and you can see right there that's the arch I was looking for. An example of something that I always seem to forget where to find stuff are some fences which came out with Tanoa, and it's under the back alley. They're called back alley, and it's these. I use them all the time when I'm setting up a place for the ammo boxes to be in. So I just go in and type in back alley, and you can see it filters it out for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here, and we're going to find some Afghan houses, because what we want to do is we want to create like a small village around this to show, generally speaking, the religious buildings tend to be the center of communities. So we're going to show that obviously the mosque came here and people built their stuff up around it. An example would be, if you ever watch any of these documentaries about Afghanistan and Iraq, there's always markets and stuff around there. So what we can do is you can go into, let's see, there is a place here that's got market stuff. You can just go in and type market. There, you see it's under JBAD miscellaneous. So we have a bunch of market stuff here. So what we can do is, this looks good because we're coming in the middle of the night, so maybe we don't necessarily want the stands all set up and everything. So again, you can see that in this case, I do have my vertical mode set up so where it should snap down, but the model maker, depending on where they put the center of the model itself, it may not necessarily snap down. Now, a downside to having this is, you can see I'm holding down my Alt key and I'm trying to pull this down and it won't let me. So what I need to do is take these two off, pull it down, put it actually in the ground. Again, with this, if I want it to be destroyed, I need to leave it as is. It's fine. I don't necessarily need this to be destroyed, so I'm going to take off simulation, take off damage, and you can see I've got the little dot there. So what we can do is, let's Control C, Control V. We'll flip this around so it doesn't look like an exact copy. Now these look like stands that are just set up waiting to go. And I saw, there we go. Let's see. See, we can make a nice little market thing here. Yep. Give it some shade for the customers to sit under when they're having their tea. Again. And this is basically dressing your set. So what you're doing is you're trying to make it as lived in as you can. Here's another quick trick. You see how I sat here and worked this out to where it's roughly square to this building here, and if I want to, I could just push it up and you can see, look for the yellow bounding box. That looks pretty dead on, right? Is that going the right way? That's going the other way, so let's flip it around. Yep, there we go. That's still the right way around, okay. There we go. Fairly close. All right, so, oh gosh. There we go. Close enough. So now I set this up. And I'm going to go through and make it so it doesn't eat our CPUs. Now I could go through and pull down all these different market stands to do a little bit of variety and have to do that every time. Or I can do this. I can Control C, Control V, double click, go up to object type. All these are named the same thing. So I just click on this and voila, it's a different stand. That works best if all the objects are together. If you have to go through and actually scroll up and down that list to find something different, it's probably not going to save you as much time as it's worth. But now you can see, now I've got these three down. I can basically just copy and paste these two and put them down. And that gives us a little bit of variety. The stands aren't really stocked up yet. Looks like they left this stuff when they went home, and when they come in the morning, they'll just reset all the stands. And really, each person's going to have their own way of doing all this stuff. What you think looks good, what you think looks lived in. 90% of the time, it's just seeing something and put it in. I'd be interested to hear from other mission makers if they ever say, no, I specifically wanted to put this in, because that would require a lot of knowledge about all the assets there are, and just great memory, I guess. So here's another neat trick. I'm going to have this flip around. I want this to go 180 degrees. If I come over here to this, you can see it's 26.103. 180 would take me, if I added 180 to that, 180 degrees to flip it around. That's going to be 206, right? So just put a 0 in there, and bang, look at that. Now you put those two together, and it looks like it's all one structure. Math is fun. Now you can see we're starting to get a market feel around the actual mosque itself. Now we need to put some buildings down. Now with buildings, I tend to take this off because buildings tend to be built. So floors aren't at an angle. The only thing is with this, you need to make sure that the floors aren't, the ground's not coming through the floors, just like that. See how the ground's coming through the floor? So you're going to raise this up. And again, to raise it up, I'm holding Alt and just grabbing the object. Just go around, make sure that nothing looks too whacked. Make sure that I haven't lifted the model out of the ground, like right here. So, nope, we still have room. That's good. Yeah, looks good. And now again, if I want to do this so this is actually in line with this, I can go in, copy this, open this one up. Now what I'm doing is I'm pasting the position, the direction of that object with the one I have down below it. Hit V. And now if I want to change this so it's flipped around, because you can see that it flipped it around the opposite way to how I had it before, right? Then what I can do is, remember it was 20 because I flipped it 180 before, and bang, that's exactly how I had it before. And now, in the perfect world, for those with attention to detail, these are all basically to the same orientation as the mosque. And we want to build a cluttered feel, like people are walking up to the mosque, to the front door, and you're going past a bunch of buildings. And what we'll do is I'm going to just go through and basically build what would be streets coming up to this. So we're going to have a street come down here, have a street come down here, and then we'll make some of these houses to fill it all in. What I can do to make this really realistic is I can actually put some sort of sidewalk or something down here to make it look even better. So let's find a sidewalk. You can do one or two things. You can put sidewalk in, and you'll see that every sidewalk that you have comes up. Some of the sidewalks have pictures, some don't. We want it to be rural. And we want it to be, let's see what this looks like. And honestly, this is really what you're going to spend most of your time doing. Let's see what this looks like long. I like that. See how that fits right in? Oh, that's dead on right there, isn't it? Let's just make sure that is square. Yeah, look at that. Sharp. Very nice. Open it up. Now we're going to snap this to terrain normal. This works sometimes. Now we just do this. Adjust it by lowering it a little bit, make sure it's not an obvious gap. Now, depending on how precise you want to be, if you hit the space bar when you have an object highlighted, this will take you through the very sensitive and precise controls that Bohemian Interactive offers you in this editor. And truly, this is the best editor I've ever seen in a game. So the first one, basically, it'll move it in the direction of the arrow. Let's undo this with this undo. The second one, oh, hang on, it's still in the undo. The second one actually will change it. In other words, if I grab the red, it'll basically move the object along that arc, the green and the blue. So you can see, if I want this to be precisely smooth, I need to bring it down on the green a little bit. So you can just, and these are very sensitive. There you go, like that. And then if you want to try to do it one more time, just a touch. Voila, that's pretty darn close. That's as close as it gets in Arma. So I'm going to go ahead and speed things up. I'll go ahead and hopefully this has a turn in it. Let's see. Yep, see, there's a turn. So what I can do is when it comes down here, I'll turn the path and I'll just lead it to the road. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll put that on speed dial for you. The only thing I will show you is, let's press space and get rid of that because it's a little annoying. Hit Control C on 2. Right click, orientate to, not C normal, but terrain normal. And what we'll do is, you can do, if you do 2 at a time, that'll be a lot better than trying to put them down individually. It'll take you save you a lot of time. The other way, if you don't want to do it precisely, is you can just lower this. See how that's a universal, it's sort of got a universal height there. You can just lower that. There you go. Then you have this down here. So that's obviously not going to work, is it? Okay, you know what? This is going to take me too long. So this is what we're going to do. Here's a cheat. We are going to orientate this to C normal. And we're going to orientate all of these to C normal. Like that. And they're going to step up. So what we do is we grab this, raise this, because everything's at C normal. This is not going to be working. The terrain is just too whacked along here to be able to do something like this. So plan B, not quite what I wanted. We're going to do roads. The difference between roads and the object is roads actually basically they contour. You can see it'll basically stick to the ground, right? So now we just need to find something that's going to look like it should be coming away from something like this. There we go. Something as majestic as there. It's going to save me so much time. As a mosque. So you can see I'll just basically set this up so and you know what we can do, which will look really nice, is we can take this, have it go around the mosque. And this is what I was telling you earlier, where you'll get in and you'll suddenly go, you know, this is a good idea. Why don't we do this? And what I'll have to go through is go and change some of the things I have on the other side. really need to get rid of grass. You want to type in grass cutter. And this is a bit of a manual process, so it can't be used for huge areas. There is actually a script for that, but if you use that script, fair warning, it will really impact performance. We used it hugely on the Hebonides Camp Moor, and maybe we used it too much. I'm not sure, but it really did. Take probably 10 or 5 frames FPS off of people's performance. I always use the cup ones, which have got the question marks, because the large one is a little bit bigger, and you only need to put less of them down. So that certainly helps. All right, I think that looks good. I think maybe we'll put a couple more small. You know what? We'll do the shack houses along here. Let's do that. Make it look like people are slumming it. Not slumming it, but basically living illegally right outside the gates of the mosque. We're going to end part 1 right there, my friend. If you head on over to part 2, we'll continue to build the mission, taking a look at first air assault mission files, placing and managing AI, the hide and show module, placing comments on your mission, Jeebus spawn script, that's always fun, waypoints, triggers, and advanced triggers. Thank you very much for hanging around for part 1, and we will see you in part 2.